Welcome to Read Talk, the podcast designed to bring information, read-making tips, and a little lightheartedness to your read-making desk. Each podcast features a leading oboist in our field and does a deep dive into a question on every oboist's mind. How do I become a successful readmaker? Joining us today to share her insight on readmaking is Toyin Spellman-Diaz, oboist of the Imani Winds and professor of oboe at New York University Steinhardt School of Music. Let's talk reads. I'm Margaret Marco.
And I'm Courtney Miller.
Welcome, Toyin Spellman-Diaz. It's such a pleasure to talk with you today about a topic so near and dear to all of our hearts.
Thank you so much. I don't know about near and dear, but fear and queer, I think those rhyming adjectives are definitely in there.
And congrats on your new teaching gig. That's really incredible.
Well, thank you so much. I'm honored to be a part of the mighty New York University, and yesterday was my first day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this is incredible. I got the job maybe 3 weeks before school started. So
wow.
Yeah, it was new to me, and I'm so glad to have it. And people are already calling me and talking about coming to study with me there. So I'm so excited to see where that leads.
Oh, well, they're lucky to have you, and that's going to be great for the oboe community there in New York. That's fantastic, and for everyone. Well, why don't we go ahead and start talking about reeds? I would love to start with the nuts and bolts of reed making. If you could talk to us a little bit about your setup, like what gouge you use and your measurements and staples and all of that kind of good stuff.
Okay, may I just make a general philosophy thought first?
Absolutely.
About reed making, and that is... I tell this often in oboe master classes. I practice the Effit school of reed making, in that I spend a lot of time, of course, making reeds and thinking about reeds. But when it comes down time to play, I don't really think about reed making that much. I just let all that go, and whatever problems I have with the reed, which of course are slim to none.
Of course.
Yes. So perfect. I have a pretty good setup of my body to deal with that stuff, and my mouth. So I know what to do to make a reed that might not be 100% sound as close to 100% as possible. So with that in mind, I will tell you my general stuff. Also in that Effit school of reed philosophy is the fact that I don't gouge anymore. I haven't gouged in 20, 25 years. Mm-hmm. Once I got out of school, I was like, F it. See, there you go. And that's the beginning of the name. Anybody can join my reed school. You're welcome. We have many members, I think. But I do order gouged cane from a company called Capital Cane in DC.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Frank.
And exactly. It's great because I'm buying from an African-American dealer, and that makes me very happy.
Yeah.
So I get Madame Geese cane from him. Yeah. And he uses an Inalady, I think. And it's 60 in the middle, 10.5 diameter. And then I use a Brannon X shaper tip. Mm-hmm. And then let's see, my staples, that would probably be next, right? I'm just going down the list.
Sure.
Yeah, of stuff. I use Luray brass staples. I'm pretty old school with all my stuff. I use the same thing that I used in school, because after I got out of school, I was buying all the new hotness of everything. And I just kind of lost my way. Yeah. But my graduate school teacher, Joe Robinson, he used Madame Geese cane, and after, maybe 15 years of not using it, it was off the market for a while. So it's back on the market now, and I went back to it, and boom, my reeds were 100% better. I keep using 100%. I'm going to say 35% better.
A realist.
Yes, but it got closer to 100,
Right. Well, I was going to ask you if you had any secret sources of cane, and you revealed that about getting cane from Capital Cane, which is Frank Swan is the owner of that, and he also is at the IDRS conferences consistently.
Right. He's a wonderful guy. He's doing a great job. And yeah, I think that whole secrecy thing is is not necessary. That doesn't belong in the Effett School of Reed Making.
Of course not.
Effett is about sharing and caring.
I love that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was at the Staples. Let's see. I think that's about it, right? That's what else do you need to know about the basics?
Yeah, the Staples. I think we just got it all pretty much. Unless you want to talk about measurements a little bit, like if you have any specific micrometer measurements after you've scraped or length, shape, of tip and heart and all that stuff.
No, not necessarily. My tips are a little longer. Mainly because I found with them being a little longer, it's easier to move from climate to climate, from place to place. Since I'm doing all of my work on the road, almost none of it is here in town. And I live in Jersey, but I consider New York home. Since I'm sometimes up in the mountains and sometimes in a desert and sometimes in hot and sometimes in cold, I need my reed to be as stable and flexible as possible. For me to have that, I have a longer tip. And I don't really have a specific place for it, but that's what I would say. It's just on the longer side.
Well, I think we can move on to talk more about your general approach and philosophy of reed making. Can you tell us some of the characteristics or attributes you would describe in your dream reed?
Yeah, I play in a chamber music ensemble. It's called Imani Winds, and it's been around for 23 years. This is our 24th season. We're starting this crazy COVID season. Yeah, and I've been in it since the beginning. So we've kind of built a sound that works well, and it's really based on our fabulous bassoonist, Monica Ellis, who's very loud. So I don't have to have orchestral loud reeds, but I need to be able to play in a more jazzy style as well as in the most classical style. So we do stuff from modernist jazz. We have a piece by avant-garde Chicago jazz musician, composer named Henry Threadgill. And for that, I need a kind of brighter reed. And for Le Tombeau, we play that all the time. I've probably played Le Tombeau close to 200 times now. And I play that at 8 a.m. at kids shows, and I play it at night at a concert hall stages. So I basically need a Le Tombeau style reed all the time. And then if I'm doing a jazzier piece, I might switch the reed out. But usually I want to just have the same frickin' reed on the whole concert. So my reed needs to be flexible, obviously. It needs to, I'm playing in a wind quintet, which means they also don't care that sometimes they ask me to play pianissimo low C's and B's, Right. So it needs to be super vibrant. Like I need to be able to do that at any time. And then at the same time, switch to loud fortissimos. It's like being a second player with a big second play. It's like playing Brahms variations all the time.
Yeah. It's a tall order. Right.
Whenever I show a student that, I'm like, this is nothing.
What else you got?
Yeah, so I love having a beautiful tone too, but my sense of a beautiful tone has changed over the years. At one point, I very much wanted to be one of the top orchestral players in the country. That was one of my goals when I was in graduate school and doing my performance diploma and playing out in the Chicago Civic Orchestra and subbing with the New York Phil and the Chicago Symphony. My thought was, I need to have this orchestral tone to my playing. But since I've gone on to do a much more varied type of repertoire than is done in most orchestras, I have to have a reed that has some darkness to it, but is also, I can get through a whole wind quintet concert.
Yeah.
And
yes,
that's a thing, it's got to be on the lighter side I got to be able to blow into it fairly easily. So
Right.
I don't know if that, basically I need a perfect read all the time.
Well, that's what it sounded like. I mean, when you say the Tombeau read every day at 8 a.m. and at 9 p.m. at night, that's very, very high standards. So do you have any favorite read tests that help you get to this dream read?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things I do, but I don't think they're all that different from anyone else. I have to have the low notes. Like, I have to have the low notes right there. So since I'm the second violin kind of in the chamber music group, so I'm playing the scala every time I make a read and checking out my low stuff for sure. So I play a whole bunch of low C's, pianissimo, like,
Wow.
yeah, that's my number one. I'm going to talk specifically about what I need because you asked.
Yes, please.
Usually when
Please.
I'm playing a more jazzy piece, I need a reed that is able to scoop really well. So that means it's a reed that has a little more taken out of the heart. And so those reeds, they might be my reject Le Tombeau reeds. And then I scrape a little more out of the heart and let it be a little bit brighter.
That's awesome.
So I wonder, do you try to go into a concert with a reed case full of reeds? Do you have any philosophy thoughts about how many reeds make you feel comfortable? Maybe before you go on tour?
We used to go on tour as much as 5 weeks at a time.
Wow.
But since we've had children now and we're older, we can't do that anymore. I mean, I don't know how people like Ray Charles and Ella Fitzgerald, I don't know how they did it into their 80s. Like that, they tour hard their whole lives, but we don't go on tour that long. Like the maximum we'll do is if we go to a different country. And like when we were in New Zealand, we stayed there for 3 weeks, but that's the max. Australia, it was 3 weeks too, no longer than that. So it doesn't have to be forever. But since touring is my life, and we usually domestically we go 2 weeks, so I've never been able to finish a read well out of my home base. I don't know if it's something about the temperature here or the humidity here. I have to have the read pretty much done before I leave the town. So I leave, let's say for a 2-week tour, I probably got 4, 5 decent reads in my case, and that'll get me through. When I go on stage, like I said, I think before, I usually just play one read the whole time. If it's a really good read, a perfect read for me could do both jazz and classical just fine. Again, it's about my setup, like my mouth setup and everything there, and I'm able to make it work really well there that way.
The next question involves your recording session routine, because you have many wonderful recording albums out there with Imani Winds. So how far in advance do you make reads for recording sessions?
Well, when you got children, like you're just making reads whenever you get a moment. Okay. I mean,
it's so true.
That's cool question, but really,
fair enough.
I'm just, like whenever I have a moment, like I'm also for Imani Winds, when you have your own business, you're an entrepreneur, as you guys know, to some extent, you're an entrepreneur, and that takes a lot of my time too. Like my read making time is sapped up by, I'm also the development director of the ensemble. So grant writing, talking to the board, all that kind of stuff takes up a lot of my time too. Yeah, so I'm starting to stress about reads a month before my recording session. But do I do anything differently than I'm doing all the rest of my time? Probably not. I'm just starting to lose sleep about it a month before.
Sounds reasonable. Ideally, how many reads do you like to have ready when you're going into a recording session? Yeah,
usually I use, when you're in a recording session, let's say when we do recordings, we're probably spending 6 hours playing. So I probably go through 3 reads in a recording session. So not many. And I'll probably save the read that works best for a particular piece, for that piece. But in general, I'm just playing the best sounding read. And as I've said before, I'm used to playing for long periods of time. Like Imani Winds, we also do not just one concert, but we'll do several outreach performances in a day. So in a given day, I'm probably on the road. I'm probably playing concerts twice a day anyway.
That's a lot.
So yeah, it's a lot. And
Yeah.
I don't play any differently. I'll confess, I